SpaceX completed a world record IPO last week, raising US $75 billion. SpaceX is now one of the world's most valuable businesses, and as you said, Elon Musk has become the world's first trillionaire. The IPO was priced at $135 US per share, traded up to $173 and settled back at $161, which is basically a 19% premium. That's kind of considered the perfect pop. IPO is a bit of a marketing event, obviously only selling 5% of the equity, so you can afford a bit of the dilution's effectively close to zero anyway. So this was, and you want a bit of good sort of goodwill publicity. So this is a perfectly priced
Did
IPO.
you buy a stock?
No, of course not.
I would have bought it.
I would have shorted rather before I bought it.
No, you would have shorted it. I would have bought it and sold it on day one.
Oh, as in, I'm not a holder of the stock, so I just wouldn't have even bothered.
I just knew that I was not going to get any stock. You got 1/10 of what you asked for.
Is that all? So Musk's retail fan base was a crucial component of the deal. They placed more than $100 billion in orders. Of course, not everybody's so excited. Legendary short seller Jim Chanos, who famously exposed Enron, said SpaceX was a hopes and dreams IPO driven by enthusiasm for Musk and AI rather than fundamentals of a company that's yet to post a profit. Anthropic and OpenAI, two of obviously SpaceX's AI competitors, are now expected to go public in the next year, seeking $1 trillion valuations each. Of course, the performance of SpaceX will be scrutinised by venture capitalists and investors before that time. Adir, what are your views on this float?
It's hard for me to communicate how much this feels like the .com boom.
I was thinking the same thing.
It's just
exactly the same thing.
It's almost identical.
Yeah.
Like the fact that.
And what is SpaceX? If you go back in time, what would you compare as the company most close to SpaceX?
I mean, the reason there's no perfect equivalent is because SpaceX is all about one person. It's singularly about one person. It's one person with all of these hopes and dreams businesses. So Tesla, that's a real business. That's not in SpaceX yet, but that will end up in SpaceX. Yeah. And so Tesla's a real business, just massively overvalued, and a business that never quite reached the potential that its investors were hoping for, or hasn't yet reached it.
I think
early investors, yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Early investors, yes, but not in the last 5 years.
It's just become a meme stock now, yeah.
And then it's got these other businesses that are not businesses, right? So this AI business.
Well, Starlink's a business.
Okay, Starlink is a little business.
No, Starlink's a great business.
It's a little business by US stock exchange listed company
Starlink
standards.
and Tesla have actually not that different.
They're real businesses.
Just small.
Agreed. Small businesses by US listed
compared to
company
Nvidia
standards.
Or Microsoft.
That's right. And then there's some non-businesses.
Yeah.
Like
XAI.
the artist formerly known as X. That's a non-business. And like XAI, which is now part of that, that's a non-business. In fact, that's a negative business.
Well, it's now they've actually announced a couple of big deals to sell compute to Anthropic and I think maybe OpenAI is the other one.
Coincidentally good timing.
Yeah, so they're basically now almost, I think the losses drop significantly because they built these two massive Colossus data centers. They can now rent them out at maybe a small profit. So they now become effectively a property play.
Yeah, they turn massive capital expenditure, CapEx, into revenue, but unlikely to be making any return on the CapEx.
It's like buying a factory, essentially.
Well, it's like buying a factory and renting it out at an amount of money that makes you a terrible, terrible, terrible return on the factory. And so the reason I say that bit of background is it's easy to mistake this as being unlike the .com boom because the businesses are making revenue.
Yeah.
But what is the same is that the valuation and the economics of the businesses are completely disconnected. Yeah. It's easy to see that they're disconnected when you're trying to price eyeballs in the .com boom because the eyeballs don't have a dollar sign in front of them. They've got a dollar sign in them, but not in front of them.
I think that and people could say, .com was ridiculous because of eyeballs, but in a sense it made sense because what the principle was, look at Meta. Meta had a lot of eyeballs and then it was able to later monetize. So the people weren't completely stupid back then. They basically thought, we'll get traffic to the site and we'll figure out a way to monetize that traffic. Meta was a perfect example of that. Google was another example of that. So Google had barely any revenue when it listed.
So maybe the way I would phrase that from a business point of view is I would say the eyeballs were seen as an input metric that would eventually drive revenue.
Exactly.
And so if you got enough of them, built them up, like there would be scale
and very minimal incremental
benefits.
costs when you hit that scaling point.
And it was true in a couple of cases and almost entirely false. And so now I think it's easy to mistake this because of the revenue, but what you've got is a business that cannot possibly be worth this on an economic basis. Yeah. Not just because the multiple of revenue is 100 or something, but because there is actually not an addressable market large enough to support this kind of valuation.
Yeah.
And so
for the business they do.
For the business they do. That's right. Well, you might argue for any business because their TAM is getting to be the size of the global economy pretty soon.
NVIDIA's a much more valuable business, and it's somewhat legitimate based on the current CapEx spend.
But this is about tomorrow's promises, the SpaceX business.
It's
NVIDIA more about today's
but it's specific. SpaceX's specific business doesn't have the TAM, is what you're saying, whereas NVIDIA's and Microsoft's and Amazon's do. And Apple's do.
But NVIDIA is not promising the TAM that SpaceX has. So what I'd say is because NVIDIA
SpaceX TAM's ridiculous.
Because NVIDIA has today, they can be a bit more realistic about tomorrow. By the way, I think Jensen has become a cheerleader for the AI boom and has detached from being a level-headed CEO.
Yeah.
But I think because Elon has virtually nothing to sell today to justify valuation, he has to sell tomorrow.
Yeah, of course. He's the master of bringing forward the story.
And so I think people will look back on this in X number of years, and I'm evasive about what X is because it could be 5 and it could be 1. I don't think it's 1. I think you got to. I think OpenAI and Anthropic will now go to market, and they'll be massively oversubscribed, and you never really know what pops the bubble. It's not even really obvious in hindsight. What's obvious is it's unpredictable, but I think this has got some time to run. But ultimately, I think that we'll look back on this and say, what were these people thinking? And the last comment I want to say is this. Now when I read very smart people, putting aside Chanos, very smart people, like people that are doing deals in Goldman Sachs, okay, they've got a vested interest. But not just that, really smart fund managers, and I sent you one example. Yeah. So very smart people are now saying very dumb things, drinking the Kool-Aid. Yeah. I remember that from the dot-com boom, and I was young. Yeah. And I remember thinking, hang on, am I really dumb? I must be really dumb.
People invest. I invested in a business called Newtel, I remember, in like 1999.
Oh, Newtel, I remember that business.
And I remember thinking, eventually I was like, I sold most of my stuff before the crash. I did generally all right.
That's impressive.
There was a couple of things. Newtel was one of the things I held. And the reason I held is I saw Pratt was still invested. There's something else. Like, I thought, these guys are smarter than me. Like, they must know something I don't. I'm not going to sell that particular stock. And it dropped not 100%. Went like it literally collapsed. So like and that was probably when I realized these so-called smart people, be it analysts, be it investors, be it rich people, they're actually dumber than anyone.
Well, they're not dumber than anyone, but they are very close to the fire, the glow and the heat and the excitement. And what I would say is, if you're skeptical and cynical about what's going on, do not second guess yourself based on smart people. And if you're not cynical and you think you're right, don't draw any succor from smart people agreeing with you. Like I saw almost every smart person being wrong in the dot-com boom.
Definitionally, that makes them not smart.
Well, what is it? Does it? Because there are people that rode NVIDIA from $300 million valuation, let's say, and they've made 15x on their money.
A billion valuation, sorry. $300 billion valuation.
$300
been a while since not 300 million.
Yeah, that's true. I don't think anyone VCs rode them from there. But 300 bill, you're right. And so they've made 15x of their money. Yeah. And let's say they sell now. Were they dumb or smart? I think they were smart. They understood how the system works.
They're smart because they now realise it's overpriced. So like it's like, and that's the smart because they sold. But I'm talking about the ones that don't sell.
Do you think someone that buys in on the bigger fool theory, which is I'm a fool for buying this, but a bigger fool is going to pay more in future, dumb or smart?
That was when I bought our house.
I think
like 7 years ago. I basically I'm overpaying for this, but I think like people are stupid and it's like what I've doubled since then. Like I thought it was 50% overvalued. Now I think it's 300% overvalued, whatever it is.
And so that's even smarter because you got to live in it in the meantime and got all of that benefit. But I think there are lots of different emotional dynamics that make markets work. And there is, this thing, I always quote this to you, Ecclesiastes, Kohelet. It's like in the Jewish Bible. And there's a time for this and a time for that, and a time to kill and a time to stop the war, whatever it is. And so there's a time to plant and a time to reap. That's one of the lines. Yeah. And so I think we're in the time to reap now.
Totally.
But there was still time to plant 2 years ago when I was scared to plant because I thought there were problems with the soil.
I was claiming that whatever with the FANGs, Mag 7 or whatever, was massively overpriced and it kept going up another 18 months. Well, still, it's pretty much plateaued now.
And I think contrarians spend more time being wrong than right. Yeah. But when they're right, they're really right. And so you've got to be able to hold on. And I think there's a time for growth investing and a time for value investing. And I think that at the moment, it is safer to look through the lens of a value investor because you'll avoid the bubble. But you need to accept, I'm sure you do accept this, you might miss out on 2 years of growth. NVIDIA, it's not impossible that NVIDIA is going to be worth $20 trillion.
I think
No, it could 4x from here. If SpaceX can be worth a gazillion dollars.
No, but I think the problem is when you start making money, it's hard to get these ridiculous valuations. You start getting a profit multiple.
NVIDIA, so SpaceX.
We've always been a victim of that here.
Elon is the Pope of tech.
Yeah.
So he's a Pope, so that's a religion. And NVIDIA is another, just a bit of a smaller religion.
Yeah.
But once a religion is worth 5 trillion, it can be worth 20 trillion. Like we've left the domain of economics.
As I've said, problem with booms and bubbles is pricing's caused by the marginal moron. So you've got a lot of marginal morons out there in bubbles. So in a bubble, you get more and more morons. You're not gonna, maybe you only got 5% of people who are morons, but you only need 5% because they're the ones pushing the price up. The person who bids that massive price at the auction, they're the ones who set the price of the house. Then everybody claps.
But you call them the marginal moron, and I'm much less inclined to call them morons because they've been playing this game for 3 years, and they've made more money off this bubble than I have. Because I've been scared for 3 years.
Yeah, but you can still be wrong and make money. Like making money and being right / being smart aren't certainly mutually exclusive.
So some of these players, these marginal players that are buying, they see things as clearly as we do. Their risk appetite is just different, and their preparedness. I tell you what, you're scared of. This is the free psychoanalysis session today.
Thank you, Sigmund.
I tell you what, you're scared of. You're scared of buying into this. It's absurd. Then it crashes, and then you're like, what a moron I was. I knew it was absurd. By the way, I'm scared of the same thing. I knew it was absurd. How could I ever have been dumb enough to buy this? But lots of people don't feel that thing. They're like, who cares? I'll make all this money on the way through.
We both lived through 99 and
but lots of people did. Lots of people did, and they're buying today.
People have short memories. I think either people weren't born, they could be Micah was 3 years old then, or you have short memories. And people have intentionally short memories because greed overcomes.
So I will say this. If we were smarter, we would say, we lived through this. We got to see it. We know what the dynamic or the trajectory of a bubble is. We can when we think it's a bubble, we got 3 years to ride this thing and make an absolute fortune. And I can tell you, SanDisk up 10x this year. The cooling businesses, I called the cooling businesses 6 months ago. I was nowhere near going to buy those things.
Yeah.
They've all gone up multiple X.
Yeah.
Like there was plenty of time for us to make money. It's just not our personalities.